Wait for someone to come in.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Hello, all. As we start to maybe come back in, let's see. We'll give it a few minutes for someone to pop back in at 8 o'clock, and then we will test to see if we can hear Andrew. So give a few. Oh, we got comments. Okay, cool. Hey, we got we got people here. So, guys, I'm going to have Andrew's already on the phone. I'm going to have him say a few words and let me know in the chat if you can hear what Andrew is saying. So, go ahead, Andrew.
Hey, everyone. Hope everybody's having a great Sunday night. And I also hope that you can hear me on YouTube Live.
And now we cross our fingers. We're waiting for the chat.
Let's go chat.
Yes, it worked. We did it, dude.
Oh man.
We still have the power of Apple technicians.
We do. I was gonna say, man, I'm calling in with a ghost story.
Oh,
and
man.
Ghosts in the machine trying to stop me.
It is. Okay, real quick. So this is a strange story with Jeremiah Byron. I've got my buddy Andrew from Iowa on the phone. We had kind of like a weird thing happen where we couldn't hear Andrew earlier, but we got it figured out. So now we can hear Andrew, and he's got a story to share with us. So thanks everyone for coming back, hanging out. Let's go for it, Andrew.
All right. So the fun story that I have is kind of in relation to the last time I called in, which was places that your listener group can go visit and, of course, be respectful of. But
right.
This one actually takes place in Fremont, Nebraska at a place called Bernard Park. And if you're unfamiliar with Bernard Park, it's just a kind of a quaint suburban park kind of nestled in the middle of like Fremont, Nebraska. And pretty much the average person that would walk by it wouldn't know that it's maybe haunted. So dating back to like the 1800s, this area was actually home to Green Grove Cemetery, which was active until 1878, when it was decided because of the rising population that the cemetery should be moved to maybe a less desirable spot of land. So then the city then created Ridge Cemetery to the west of town, and they started moving bodies from the Green Grove to Ridge Cemetery. Well, there's a problem with passage of time where some of the grave markers, of course, were missing, and they weren't able to find every body.
Oh.
So just kind of like how every single bit of paranormal kind of activities started since Poltergeist. If you've got bodies just hanging out in the ground,
yeah,
there's going to be some weird, spooky stuff that kind of happens, like in moving forward.
Yeah.
So to this day at Bernard Park, there's been a couple interesting things that have happened. So people will not knowingly, like maybe you could have been here at Bernard Park and seen someone walking, but they may disappear right in front of you. So there's apparitions that have been seen walking around the ground. There's also an apparition of a woman crying. And there's also a common sighting of a man just laying down on a park bench. So there's also, along with the sightings, people often feel kind of general unease, like they're being watched, or just kind of like just uneasy. And they also feel like sadness, which if you think about a cemetery, turned park, if there's still kind of that residual energy in the area, it can of course last onto like where we are now. So it's kind of at a busy intersection. So I don't know if there's really any paranormal investigators that have gone, because there's no way of course, like freeing up any contamination, because there's always going to be road noise, or there's always going to be people around, even the dead of night, there's going to be like street sounds or like city sounds. So it's just an interesting little area that kind of reminds me of like Bachelor's Grove, like basically the classic woman sitting on her tombstone type of deal. But this is like one of those things that's just right in the middle of Nebraska. So if any of your listeners are interested, that might be a fun little pit stop on a road trip or anything else. But
I know I've got at least one guy from Nebraska that listens, so you know who you are, bud.
He'll probably be really interested.
He'll be.
I think I kind of. Oh yeah, I dug that one up because it was just at the. It was just in Iowa City last Sunday.
Okay.
I wasn't able to listen, but I had to make the stop at. I'm going to forget the name of the cemetery now, but it's where the Black Angel is. There's a Black Angel headstone, which was originally a bronze statue that has just blackened and darkened over time. So there's all these kind of like dares. You're supposed to like go up and kiss the angel or like touch it, and then something terrible might happen to you, or people might die if they touch it. So it's I had cemeteries on the mind and had to call in.
Oakland Cemetery is what that is. Yep.
Yes, sir. That's it.
So guys, if you try that, don't come back on us. Of course, you won't be able to, but yeah. But
I'm not Chad Lewis. I don't have all the dares, but
that's right.
It's kind of fun to go out and sightsee. So.
Oh man, that's awesome. I will make a note, maybe never to go to that cemetery. So we'll see.
Yeah. Well, maybe you should go to Bernard Park. There might be some fun. You might leave with a story.
There you go. And can go to the Bigfoot Museum out there at the same time. So be good stuff.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, I hope you have a good show, and I'll talk to you soon, bud.
Thanks, Andrew.
Of course. Bye.
Bye. Good stuff with with Andrew. Let's see. Let's get caught up with who we've got back. We got 7 people back in. This time we've got my friend Mike Casey hanging out with us. Good to see you, Mike. We got Mitzi hanging out. We got Patrick McFarlane is back. Davis Adam, he's alive. Alan is back. Patrick says, we'll haunt you, Jeremiah. Oh, that's fun. Hopefully not. Let me get that banner off there. But now we do have the Rodecaster new device all figured out. We are going to be going until 9 o'clock Central Standard Time. So phone lines are now open. If you've got a story to call in with you can call 515-809-0165. I'm going to be sharing some Bigfoot stories along the way. So let me go ahead and I'm going to bring one of those up right now. And I will share, if you got the first part of it, you heard my, the Bigfoot encounter from 1973 from Jim McLaren's newsletter. Was pretty cool. But we're going to go ahead and we are going to share an encounter from BigfootEncounters.com. And this is from Lake Tahoe, California in 1986. So, oh my goodness, Pat, why do you tell Patrick? Okay. Well, I guess my town's got a town legend, so have to talk to Patrick about that. That's funny. Okay, let's get into the Lake Tahoe story. My name is omitted. I've been keeping this secret around since 1986 and didn't know who I could tell without sounding like a nut, but it's been bothering me, and I hope you are the appropriate person to contact regarding this matter. Here's what my wife and I saw. During the late summer of 1986, my wife Mary and I were driving east on Highway 50, heading toward Lake Tahoe at about 11:30 p.m. We were about 25 to 30 miles west of Lake Tahoe when we approached an S-curve. As we made a right turn, the road curved toward a mountainside and then turned away to the left. While making the right turn, however, our headlights were facing the side of a hill and something else we were not prepared for. About 40 yards directly in front of us, we saw a huge hairy man-like creature walking along the side of this hill. At the roadside, our headlights were directly on it, and there was no mistaking what we saw at that distance. As we made the left turn away from the hill, the thing disappeared into the darkness. My wife and I stared off ahead, and as we drove a short distance, both turned to look at each other, and we said, "Did you see that?" I knew I hadn't imagined it because she saw it too. Now, the problem was, who we could tell without sounding crazy, so we never told a soul. But I've been searching for the right person to tell because it's been eating at me all these years. I hope you are the person I've been seeking. Thank you in advance. And by the way, just so there is no question about my sanity, I'm a sworn peace officer for the state of California. And just telling you this could ruin my reputation and make me the butt of jokes for the next 10 years. Of course, disclaimer, this is from the website bigfootencounters.com. So this would be the person writing this is referring to Bobby Short, who was a great Bigfoot researcher. Unfortunately, she has been passed away, but her grandson does still run this website. She's been passed away for about 10 years. So let's catch on up. Davis says, I think Haunted Highway investigated the Black Angel statue. I think you're right. Sounds like a Haunted Highway thing to do. Patrick says, FYI, there's a grave of a child in your town by the railroad tracks. Well, cool. Thanks for that. I'm gonna have to look that up. That's kind of interesting. I wonder if there's like a headstone there or anything, or it's just like, well, we won't get into it. Hike with Mike is here. Hi, folks. Well, good to see you, Hike with Mike. This is Strange Stories of Jeremiah Byron. It's an old school open phone lines show where you can call in and you can share your story. 515-809-0165. We've got the tech worked out, so it's actually working now. We had my buddy Andrew call in with some interesting cemetery stories from Fremont, Nebraska. So thanks for calling in with that, Andrew. I'm sharing some Bigfoot encounter stories from bigfootencounters.com. But all you are welcome. The phone lines are now open where you can go ahead and you can share your weird encounter. We've had people call in before. Bigfoot stories, UFO stories, alien stories, weird stuff they couldn't explain. Black dogs in the middle of the forest. That one always sticks out to my mind for some reason. I am looking for our next. Here we go. Well, friends, while we're waiting for our next caller, of course, phone lines are open. Let me read you another encounter from bigfootencounters.com. And no, Patrick, hopefully no giant owls. Fingers crossed. All right. This encounter is Bigfoot watches snowmobilers in Gifford-Pinchot National Forest. This happened some 10 or 12 years ago, roughly 1995 or so. The guy wasn't a researcher, just an ardent, dyed-in-the-wool snowmobiler. This fellow's name was Garcia. He lived in Beaverton, Oregon, an area near Portland. Seems he and some of his buddies were up in the Gifford-Pinchot National Forest doing what snowmobilers do, playing chase, trying to ditch or lose your chasers. Garcia was way out in front of his pursuers, trying to lose them. He turned up a spur road in an untouched snow area, thinking his buddies would miss where he turned. The spur only went up about 200 yards into an old landing site, with the road ending right at the timber's edge. Garcia's plan was to go up into the old unit, get out of sight of the main road, make a big swing through the old unit. Then when his buddies passed, he planned to come down and get in behind them before they noticed. Wrong. It didn't work out that way. When he tore out into the unit and started to make his turn at the old landing, standing out at the end of the road just outside the timber was a large Bigfoot watching him. Garcia panicked, and in his fright, he flopped his snowmobile. In his panic state, between trying to right his ride and watch his observer, who was just standing watching this scared human floundering around in new snow, it must have been a sight to behold. Anyway, when the Bigfoot had seen enough, it just turned and walked back into the timber, much to Garcia's relief. He finally got his snowmobile back on its bottom side down and met up with his buddies and told them the story, which they checked out without Garcia. This guy was scared half out of his skin. And too bad, more retransplant Oh, wow. I don't know if I'll read that part. it kind of gets into how the guy isn't happy that people from California were moving to Oregon. Some things never change. Now everyone's moving out. Anyways, that's beside the point. Well, for anyone that's new, this is Strange Stories with Jeremiah Byron. This is an old school radio type call-in show. If you've got a story that you've encounter of some sort that you've experienced, Bigfoot, cryptids, weird stuff, UFOs, aliens, anything weird that's happened to you, you can go ahead and you can call on in. My phone number is 515-809-0165. And you can share your story for a few minutes if you'd like. While we're waiting, I'm going to go ahead and get something else pulled up here to share with you guys. I had 7 pulled up, and then I had to go ahead and our tech had to mess up, and I had to restart everything. So you know how that is. Ooh, here's a fun one. Oh, hey, Tiffany. Good to see you. Good times with Tiffany. Here we go. This is from BigfootEncounters.com. Bonner County, Idaho, 1970s. All the good stuff happened in the 1970s. My brother Jeff and I grew up in the wilds of northern Idaho, shot grouse, saw elk, moose, bear, rode our horses for miles and miles in the early 70s. We used to ride our horses up to Cindy and Wendy's place, up the creek that flowed into Rapid Lightning Creek, just about 11 miles up. One day, our horse, riding double, spooked and threw us off and ran back the way we'd just come from. We chased after the horse for a little bit, then turned around to hike back home. We came around a bend in the creek, and a big, upright, black animal was scooping up water in the creek, having a drink. We were about 30 yards from it, and were so astonished we held our breath. It was black, graceful, 2-legged, and huge. We grew up in the wilds, and to this day I could still see the animal. It was not a bear, and not anything I'd seen before. We never saw its eyes, just the upright form and profile. Was not a bear. This creature was at home on 2 legs. The place we saw it was so rugged, there were boulders, slippery rocks, and was where he was dipping a drink of water. When it caught a whiff of our scent and heard me gasp, it strolled off. I really mean strode off. It didn't drop down on all fours and run. It glanced at us and walked across the stream into the woods. I've had many animal encounters, but only 2 stayed with me. This creature was the newest, and about 4 years ago, when a maroon black cat, the height of my bumper of my expedition, ran in front of me, 10 feet in front, and the light hit it, and some kind of rosettes lit up, not really spotted, but splashed, with a pattern, deep red shading to black, blocky head, heavy set, long-tailed. They said I saw a house cat. Yeah, a house cat 3.5 feet tall? I don't think so. They thought I was drinking, but about 11 a.m. coming back from babysitting, I think not. So that's a fun little one that talks about seeing a Bigfoot that was drinking some water, and then a cryptid cat to boot. Pretty cool stuff. Patrick says everyone was coming down from the 60s. Yeah, that's the thing, right? I suppose that is the case. Oh my goodness. Who do we have but Mr. Tim Halloran? Hey, look what I have right here, right next to my desk. Guys, if you don't have a copy of The Bigfoot Influencers by Tim Halloran, you need to check it out. It's a great book, and I've learned a ton from it. So make sure you pick up a copy, Amazon or Hanger One Publishing from Doug Highcheck. Good stuff. Good to see you, Tim. He's got some good interviews on YouTube. If you just search for Bigfoot Influencers, Untold Radio, you can see some really good influencers from Tim and Dana. So we are chugging along. We're almost halfway through. We got a Sunday night episode of Strange Stories of Jeremiah Byron. If you've got a if you got any weird stories to share, any Bigfoot stuff, cryptid stuff, this is the place, the safe place to do it. And literally, it's like going fishing because you never know who's going to be here. And I do this every Sunday night, and you never know who's going to call in. And it's just like putting a little fishing line out there and letting everyone know about it. And someday you might get a call, 515-809-0165. Oh, cool. Tim just did his first live episode tonight. That's awesome. Those are always fun. Hey, I'm doing a live episode right now. While we're waiting for our next call, let's go ahead. I'm going to see if I can find something else to read here. Something cool. What would be cool? Ooh, this one sounds fun. Okay, get ready, kids. Get ready, kids. I've got another story for you from BigfootEncounters.com. Or do I?
From
Patrick.
Hey, Patrick, what's up?
Hi, Jeremiah. How are you?
Good. You are live on the show, of course. And what you got going on, man?
Well, you know, the caller earlier kind of sparked some memories for me. I had moved in with my dad. I don't know. This was like 12, 14 years ago. Something like that, right after my mom had passed away.
Oh, sure.
And I was staying in my old room, and I had this old bed, you know, one of them old metal spring beds. And I would go to sleep at night, and just before I would go to sleep, just before I would doze off, the bed would shake. And I couldn't figure it out for the longest time. I'm a pretty logical person. And I'm like, you know, what's causing this? You know, I mean, there's got to be a reason for this, right? And finally, I kind of put it 2 and 2 together. So, you know, I always got up early to go to work. And before I would go to work, I would go in to my dad's bedroom and I would wake him up. And the way I would wake him up is I would tap on his footboard, which he had the same style bed that I had, metal frame, the whole 9 yards. And I would tap on it, and it would kind of startle him awake. But, you know, it woke him up, and, you know, he could get going for his day. And so then I kind of put 2 and 2 together. I was like, oh, I think that's my mom, you know, telling me to knock it off, you know, like quit waking up your dad like that because he doesn't like it.
Oh, man.
So as soon as I stopped doing that, then my bed stopped shaking.
Really?
So
that is so wild.
So, and I mentioned in the comments about it's a little girl that had died, and I can't remember. She died of, I can't remember. It's so long. I want to say she died of influenza or something like that.
Okay.
And that's where they buried her, and I'm trying to think what highway that is, going south out of Earlham there, just on the other side of the railroad tracks.
Yep, I know exactly where it is.
There used to be a little cross there, and I don't know if it's still there or not. But my mom and dad were responsible for getting the cross put up.
Oh, really?
So, yeah.
That's it. I haven't really looked a lot into the history of the town yet, but I need to do that because I've seen in the library they have some really old books in there, old records, and there's a historical society in the town, a historical museum. I need to check that out, see if I can dig up some old stories of the town. But thank you for bringing that to my attention, and that is such an interesting story.
No problem.
Thank you.
So, you bet. All right. Well, I appreciate your time. You have a great night, man.
All right. Talk to you, Patrick. Thanks for calling.
Mm-hmm. You bet. Bye.
That was wild. Stuff like that is weird. So I'm not sure what I think about it. But I'm glad you shared it, Patrick. It's such a weird story. Reminded me of what I said last week though, which is remember the homework. I was talking about how some people they contact their local sheriff's office or law enforcement office, and they just ask, "Hey, do you have a folder with any weird stuff in it? All the weird calls, all the Bigfoot encrypted stuff, and Dogman, and stuff that doesn't make sense, stuff that you don't really want to mess with. Do you have a folder with all that weird stuff?" There's people that have gotten folders like that in different parts of history. For example, Linda Godfrey got the big folder of all of the Beast of Bray Road back in the day. There's also with the Enfield Horror, that police station, I believe, had a whole. No, it was the Big Muddy Monster, Murfreesboro, Illinois. Because if you get the book from Chad Lewis, which you should, in the back they have the contents of that folder from the police officers of all the different reports. Is pretty cool. So for those that are new, this is Strange Stories of Jeremiah Byron. You can call in, share your story, 515-809-0165. Phone lines are now open. We've had a fun episode so far. We had some very interesting calls about haunted and weird things from Andrew and also from Patrick. I've got a story to share to you from BigfootEncounters.com while we're waiting. Shasta County, Wildwood, California, 1960s. As promised, another story from back in the early 1960s. We were logging near Wildwood, California one spring, a place that is well known for Bigfoot. We had finished a hard day and stopped for a beer at the Wildwood Inn. Did I? I think I already. I don't think I finished this one. I think I got halfway through. We'll just go for it. There, I was lucky enough to get into a conversation with an elderly local Native American. He had lived in the area all of his life, born in 1900 and now 66 years old. He had a great deal of information about how the area had changed over the years. His name was Albert Hampton. After graduating from high school, he became a taxidermist and had a very successful business. I'm not sure just how, but lucky for me, we began talking about Bigfoot. Mr. Hampton told me a story, the one you are reading now, that I found interesting and funny. He said that late one night he was attending a dance at the Wildwood Inn. Now, in your mind, picture the building. It was a one-story building with a sitting porch that ran all the way around it. Albert said the music was playing and many were dancing, but he was standing chatting with friends. And there were windows every 4 feet along the front and side walls. Albert just happened to glance out one of these just in time to see something or someone looking back at him from a lower crouched position. He and several other men walked outside to see what was going on. The Bigfoot stepped off the porch and walked north toward the woods. At the same time, another man ran to his truck and returned with a .30-06 rifle, which he fired only once. His aim was on, and it was believed that Bigfoot was hit. It let out a terrible scream and ran. There were about 6 inches of snow on the ground. The Bigfoot left many tracks and a blood trail. The men decided to trail the beast and finish him off. After about 30 minutes, the men gathered with guns and flashlights and began their trailing. They followed the old Bigfoot for several miles to a small stream of water, an offshoot of the Trinity River, but this is where they lost him. Albert said this creature was near 6 feet tall, hairy everywhere except for the face, palms of its hands, and bottom of its feet. It was a reddish brown and smelled very bad, but this was the last time old Bigfoot ever went to the dances around there. Interesting story. BigfootEncounters.com. I cannot recommend it enough. There are stories upon stories, and it is just, they are so good. You guys got to check this out. It's an older website, but don't let the GeoCities look get to you. It is worth the time to check it out. If you're new to the show right now, this is Strange Stories with Jeremiah Byron, a call-in show I do every Sunday night from 7:30 to 8:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. Today, because of some tech difficulties, we are going from 8 to 9 p.m. Central Standard Time. I am going to pull up another one for us. Let's see. You gotta find the perfect length. Not too long. Let's see. Perfect. This one will be good. All right. We're just hanging out here. We got 11 people hanging out tonight. If there's anyone new in the chat, feel free to put in the chat where you're listening from so I can see that you're in here. And if you've got a friend that perhaps they have a story, something to share, and you think maybe it's time that they would be up for sharing it, go ahead, contact them. You can send them a message, say, hey, Jeremiah is hanging out. He's live on YouTube. He's telling Bigfoot stories, and he's listening to people call in and share their stories about Bigfoot and weird stuff. And we got 30 minutes left. This is 515-809-0165. I've got the next story pulled up here. Let's see what we've got. This comes from BigfootEncounters.com, Skamania County, Washington, 1993. I've got one for you. This is a true story. During the summer of 93, I owned 5 acres in the Cascade Mountains of southwest Washington in Skamania County. The area is rather remote with very few people living up there. Most are a quarter of a mile at the closest to neighbors. I was outside in the yard around dusk playing with my daughter and my gray wolf dog. When the neighbor's dogs, who lived farther up the canyon, he used to hunt bear, started to make more noise than usual. As I listened to them, there was this very loud, growling, howling scream that was unlike anything I'd ever heard. It made the hairs on my dog's neck stand up on end, and mine too. All at once, the canyon was dead silent, which is very unusual being in a canyon. Even the most slightest noises seemed to echo down the canyon, and on the air there was this horrible smell that I would relate to something dead mixed with a very musky smell. Excuse me. As I told my daughter to get in the house, I noticed that the dog was cowering under the house and refused to come when I tried to call him into the house. Living in the mountains is in such a remote place, it's not unusual to see and hear mountain lions, black bear, puma, elk, and the like. And I am familiar with the sounds of these animals. My dog has chased without fear or sense, I should say, all of the animals above, and he has never cowered, even when he was charged by a bull elk during the rutting season until that evening. That was the quietest night that I have ever experienced there. Not the unusual dogs barking in the distance, but dead quiet. The only noise heard was the occasional crashing and breaking of wood, like something big was about in the woods. I'm not saying what it was because I didn't see it, but to this day, in my mind, I know what it was. It's a Bigfoot. Good stuff. We got 13 people hanging out here. Thanks for coming in, everyone. If you're new to the group, go ahead and put in the chat where you're listening from today so I can see who's hanging out. This is Strange Stories of Jeremiah Byron. It's a live open phone lines radio show on YouTube. We're going until 9 p.m. Central Standard Time tonight. If you've got a weird story you'd like to share on the air, record for the podcast, you can go ahead, call in 515-809-0165. We got a lot of people hanging out today. Tons of great people in here. I'm going to go ahead and get another Bigfoot encounter queued up here. We're having a good time reading these. Let's see. What can I get? What can I get? What? that one's no. While I'm looking, I just wanted to point out, guys, if you watch Small Town Monsters stuff, make sure you go over there because there's a newer video that just dropped. And it's a Kentucky video. It's an interview, one of the interview ones. And yours truly is narrating it. So you can go ahead, check that out. Alex Petikoff asked me if I wanted to go ahead and give that a try. And I said, hey, why not? Sounds like a fun time. And it really was. So thanks to them for giving me the opportunity to mess around with recording narration for a Small Town Monsters video, which is actually pretty cool. Let's see. I am getting closer. I know I'm getting close to a cool one here. I don't want one too long. Let's see. Oh, okay, here's a fun one. All right. Let me check the chat real quick. Tea Time says, have you heard any good Fae encounter? You know, that's a thing I don't know a lot about, and I haven't really looked into a lot, Tiffany. If you have a good one, you're welcome to call on in if you have one to share. But honestly, I don't. But I do have some pretty good Bigfoot encounters from BigfootEncounters.com. So let's go ahead. This one's from Kern County, California, the Kern Valley, 1973. Taken from a report in 1990 from anthropologist Dr. Constance Cameron, PhD. After giving a talk about Bigfoot at a local club, one of the members approached me with a personal experience. She did not mention it during the Q&A time because she never talks about it, except it seemed that I would understand. This happened in 1973 or 1974 in the Kern Valley near the Kern River, California. The woman was 18 years at the time, and she was staying with a 17-year-old friend. The girls were sleeping in an 8-foot trailer outside the friend's house, while her two brothers were sleeping in another trailer nearby. At about 2 a.m., the trailer began rocking, and the girls decided to open the curtains to scare the boys back. Upon opening the curtains, they saw a 10 to 11-inch wide face with glowing red eyes. It had broad shoulders, and that was all they could see. They later estimated its height at approximately 8 foot. The girls ran to the boys' trailer, but the boys had already run into the house. In the morning, they saw that the trailer the girls had been in was tipped over. Okay. Yeah, that's intense. So I'll be honest, that story at first, I thought it was going to be the guys messing with the girls in the other trailer and like holding up a taxidermy head or something. But the part that gets me is that the other trailer that the girls was in was actually pushed over. Now, that's pretty intense. That's a long ways to go for a prank. So I think we're looking at a Bigfoot. We got about 20 minutes left to our episode for today. Let's see. Oh. Let me see. Oh, this looks kind of cool. Okay. This one looks fun. I think someone called it. You know what? I guess that would count, wouldn't it, Patrick? Yeah. There was a water sprite. That was Steve Stockton, actually. Yeah, if you want to listen to that one, find the episode about with Steve Stockton. I think I just released that on the podcast because it had really good download numbers. And Steve Stockton is a great author. He's got some great stories. So, Tiffany, if you want to hear something that's kind of Faye like, listen to the Steve Stockton episode. We got Chris Spencer hanging out. Hey, Jeremiah, happy Sunday. Happy Sunday to you as well. Good to see you, pal. Whew. Be right back. I got to get some drinks. Good stuff. Guys, make sure you're drinking water. All right, let's see what we got here. Oh, but guys, don't get water on your computer. That's a big no. All right. Let's go ahead. I've got another Bigfoot encounter for you. As always, we have 20 minutes left. If you have a strange story to share, feel free to call on in. 515-809-0165. Phone lines are open. I will share a story with you while we're waiting to see what happens the rest of the night here. Okay. This happens in Lucerne Valley, San Bernardino County. The email was originally called the 1988 Cement Monster and sent to blah, 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 blah. Okay. I really liked your page on the Desert Bigfoot. I used to be stationed at 29 Palms from 86 to 89. I spent a lot of time in the Joshua Tree Monument, but never saw anything of real interest, if you know what I mean. Where I did see something was with my Marine buddy Mike in the spring, March of 1988, after leaving Big Bear Lake. We had been snow skiing all day at Big Bear. Now, as you probably know, the quickest way to get back to 29 Palms is to take the shortcut route through the desert. I believe it goes through or very near Apple Valley. It eventually comes in the back way to Yucca Valley after passing through Landers. Yes, now you know the highway, right? Okay, here goes one of the coolest things I ever saw during the 1980s. Mike and I had just left Big Bear. It was about 9 p.m. We were completely down from the mountain and just entering the desert, still kind of going downhill. On the right-hand side of the road, there's a cement factory sort of all by itself. There isn't any civilization around for about 10 miles or so, which isn't uncommon for the Mojave Desert. Mike was driving. I believe I saw it first. From the left side of the road, something very large seemed to stand up on two legs and run across the road. The bottom half looked human, covered with hair. The top half wasn't very visible, but appeared monsterish, scary in other words. The headlights only got the bottom half, and the thing ran out about 150 feet in front of us. He made it across the road in 3 strides. Excuse me. I distinctly remember seeing the arms pumping back and forth just like any of us would do if sprinting across the road in front of his car. It appeared to be 8 foot tall. Now for the interesting part. I didn't see anything. I just kind of glanced over at Mike. He just kind of glanced back at me. Then we both looked right at each other. What was that? I said. That was the cement monster after him. Mike slammed on the brakes and turned around. I started digging through the glove box, looking for his wife's weapon. I said, go down that dirt road. Still looking for the pistol. About 300 feet down the dirt road was the old cement factory, but no sign of the thing that ran out in front of us. So we drove around a little bit, but didn't see it. We talked about it a few times before our enlistments were over. The strange thing was that we just accepted that we had simply seen some sort of a prehistoric man, and that was it. And it was no big deal. And maybe someday we might be privileged enough to see another. That's pretty cool. You don't hear too many stories about the cement monster. Um, Tiffany says she drinks strawberry water. You're living good. I'm drinking normal water. No strawberries, although I could get some strawberries and put it in there, I guess. But guys, we got about 15 minutes left. I think we might do one last. Let's see what we can pull out of the story bin here. As always, if you've got a story to share, you can call on in 515-809-0165 if you want to share your story on the air. I'm going to find one more story here. Let's see. Okay, this will be fun. You know what? We'll end with this one tonight. Because I'll tell you what. I'll give you a little bit behind the scenes. My studio is my attic. It's very dry. It's very hot. Sometimes it's hard to talk. Tonight is one of those nights. Terrace Bay, Northwestern Ontario, Canada, 1968. The Boogeyman. My name is Edward, and what I'm about to write, I've only spoke of to my mother the following morning. I was told that it was my imagination, that I watched too many scary movies, and when I insisted it was real, I was told not to speak of it anymore or to anyone. I spent most of my childhood in a small town, Terrace Bay, then population 2,000 in northwestern Ontario, Canada. I remember that during the late summer and throughout the fall season, a curfew was put in place to ensure all children were indoors once it started to get dark. We as children were never told exactly why the curfew came into effect. My father, a strict European man, told my brother, sister, and I that the curfew was needed to protect us against the boogeyman, who would search the night for children that were disobedient and not in their beds after 9 p.m. One evening after 9 p.m., I got up for a glass of milk, and as I closed the fridge, I heard what sounded like the trash cans tipping over outside. Immediately, I opened up the back door, and to my very near right was a large mother bear and her two cubs feasting on the scraps from dinner. My mother, hearing the door open, came quickly to close it and told me, "Now you know why there's a curfew." So now I knew the reason for the curfew, or did I? Many other curfew nights followed with little or no disturbances until one early August night. I shared my bedroom with my older brother, whose bed was near the bedroom window of my parents' bungalow. As usual, he had been reading and had fallen asleep. I called out to him to turn off the table lamp between the window and his bed, but he was in a deep sleep. I got up out of bed and went to turn off the light. Upon approaching the night table, I saw a silhouette of a tall, somewhat hunchback, long, hairy armed prowler with an ape-like profile moving toward the gate of our backyard. As it was passing by my window, my hand trembled as I reached to open the clear white curtain just a little so I could see the figure's whole face. I moved the curtain, it stopped, and turned to face the window. Terrified, I quickly turned off the light, stumbled onto the edge of my brother's bed, only to fall to the floor. I ran to my bed, jumped into it, and threw the covers over my head. I couldn't believe what I had seen. Since we'd never heard of a Sasquatch Bigfoot before, I thought maybe there was some truth to the boogeyman after all. The next morning, I heard my mother outside with my father. She was upset that her garden had been completely trampled on and that part of the backwood wire fence separating the bush in our yard had been plowed over as if a bulldozer had gone right through. At first, I heard large moose in the conversation, only to finish with my father saying it must have been a very large bear. Just look at the tracks in the garden and on the lawn leading to the street. Since we lived close to a steep hill, we called it the drop that led down to our part of Lake Superior. It is most likely whatever it was made his escape down the drop and into the woods around the lake. My father left with the neighboring men toward the woods at the bottom of the drop. I told my mother what I had seen the night before. The expression on her face did not match the stern advice she gave. No, her expression was similar to mine, and I could swear she had too had seen the figure at a time in her past. I never spoke to her again about what I had seen, yet in my mind and heart I knew it was no animal or human outside my window that late summer night when I was 7 years old. That's a pretty wild story. That kind of stuff sticks with you if you're a little kid or if you're an adult. Well, guys, we're going to go ahead and call it a night. Thank you all for hanging out on another episode of Strange Stories with Jeremiah Byron. Make sure that you're subscribed to this channel and hit the bell icon so you don't miss any future episodes. Share this with your friends in any internet places you hang out so that other people can call in with their stories as well. Pleasure hearing from everyone tonight. Thank you to those that called in, and have a great rest of your night and a great weekend all.